Good morning, power hitters. Today is Tuesday, January 11th, 2022. My name is Jarrett McAllister, your mentor and co-host, alongside my homie, bro, dude, Jonathan Brunasso. What is up, player? How are you, man?
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Happy New Year's again. So glad to have you on for another kick-ass training. We got a lot of exciting things coming up, Jerry. We got this national convention, if you've heard of it.
Yeah. When is that? Is that this weekend?
It is this weekend, Friday and Saturday. I know you were just asking, giving me a softball, but
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
The deets this Friday, this Saturday. Clear your calendars, make it happen. These national conventions are designed to help you grow your business exponentially. If you go back, look at the data, it happens every single time. So be there or be square. Absolutely. Hey, just real quick before we jump into success stories, I know we're going to do this. I just want to give a shout out to Owen, who's not here right now. I know he's got an appointment. To the 49er faithful, anybody who saw that game, that comeback, that amazing comeback against Jonathan's LA Rams, that was incredible. Fourth quarter comeback, 0.4% chance of winning that game. It was amazing. So just had to throw that in there. Now on to success stories.
Right.
That's a success story.
Great transition, Jarrett. Great transition. Success stories. We would like to hear if you're new, you joined, you closed the lead, got a referral, had an ambassador sign up, had a consultant sign up, had an install. You sold Marilyn Monroe's house in Palm Springs. We would love to hear a success story. Corey, do you mind dropping in for a few seconds, sharing some success you've had?
No, not at all, even though I'm sick to my stomach right now after that little speech that the 49ers had on. To be honest with you, I was about to log off. I'm a huge Rams fan, so that one hurt a bit. I don't know how amicable I am to sharing a success story now, but I'll try to be a good sport about it. And I will say, man, you guys are a kryptonite, that's for sure. Man, I haven't beat you in like 6-7 games or something like that. I don't know. But we'll see what happens in the playoffs. That said, I've been with Power, 2 months maybe, Jonathan, I think, officially. I came from the solar industry, been in it about 10 years here locally in the Coachella Valley where I am. And ever since I've been on Power, drank all the Kool-Aid, a full gallon, and I love it. Tastes great. And things have been good. Jonathan's helped me out a lot as a mentor. And I think now I've sold about 10, 12 deals, something like that, which has been great, especially considering here where I am. Winter is not solar season. Nobody really cares about solar season during the winter because their electricity bills are a lot lower. So that's good stuff. And Jonathan and I have been working on some great, very large scale projects because of the nature where we live. In fact, we had the pleasure, or I did at least, because Jonathan was, he's so busy, he wasn't able to make it. But I was able to go to the Marilyn Monroe house in Palm Springs. We sold that job together. So I think that was a big, cool win. And I'm going to make a post about that on Facebook. And we got some other good things coming as well, too. So that's one of my success stories, I guess.
Awesome. Love you, Corey. Super excited you're here. Corey, I met in new hire training for Sunrun like 4 years ago. He's a beast. He's a badass. And you heard that correctly. He sold Marilyn Monroe's house in Palm Springs. So awesome to see you kicking butt here, Corey. With Power.
Appreciate it.
Someone else would like to share a success story? Jump off mute, raise your hand, type in the chat. Let people know how you had your success.
I have a quick success story.
Please.
So this year I am focusing on growing my team. And last week I was able to add 5 ambassadors, 1 consultant, and of course, I got 2 bills. So I'm still doing my couple solar cells a week. My goal is at least 2 a week. So I think that was a good success now that I'm focusing on, adding my ambassadors, and they're coming to the platform with bills in their hands. So I love it.
Marisa, super solid mentor. Moreno Valley, Menifee, Southern California?
Menifee, IE, Southern California, all over.
She's a badass EXP realtor, and she's taken power and solar to the whole real estate community. So nice work, Marisa. Got one more? Anyone else want to jump off mute, share a success story?
Yeah, I'll share one, Jonathan.
Yes, Jeff.
Just want to welcome Desiree Lee. She is in the loan industry. She just recently onboarded a couple of days ago. She was actually at Super Solar Saturday this past weekend, and yeah, I'm excited to have her on here, and I think she's gonna kill it. So welcome, Desi.
Awesome, Jeff.
Welcome.
Jeff Hugh is our mentor as of a few weeks ago. Only been with the platform 2-3 months, probably closed 10 deals. He likes going after mansions and estates and $10 million homes. And he speaks Mandarin, Cantonese. And he's building his business. He's adding some consultants now that he's a mentor, and he added a loan officer. So welcome, Desi. Nice work, Jeff.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, good stuff, Jared. I know there's tons of success stories, but let's keep it rolling here. Thank you to everyone for sharing. Okay, a few announcements, and then we're going to hand it off to a pretty awesome training guy that's been closing tons of deals, so an important topic to talk about. But real quick, some announcements. Last week, we had REC panels. Their training was fired. The videos, their spec sheets, their quality. I mean, you could go up against SunPower or LG. So those REC 400 black on black, check out the training, check out the YouTube, check out the spec sheet. Today, of course, we will have the great Jordan Shaw teaching on second systems. He is with Anthony Bonilla and JC Rangel's team, kicking butt. This Thursday, if you're new, we recommend taking an onboarding, 12 p.m. Pacific or 5 p.m. Pacific. Check powercalendar.com for sure on that. Also Thursday, this is big, guys. Power Hour Evolution. It's a sneak peek, right? So at 5 o'clock Pacific this Thursday, you really want to build your business around this, invite people to it. You're going to see the top 5 income earners on the stage speaking. You're going to see Charles, William Contreras, Edgardo, Maria Salazar, and myself, and then Jonathan Budd is going to talk. It's a sneak peek. It's a promo. There's going to be an announcement. So this Thursday, I would highly recommend inviting into this event, sneak peek for Power Evolution. And then, of course, if you can, the 14th and 15th, Friday and Saturday, is our official virtual national convention, 8 to 6 for 2 days. So you don't want to miss that. Equipment announcements, marketing announcements, product announcements, solo announcements, integration announcements, battery announcements, just insane stuff and training for 2 days, powerconvention.com. Then we're going to do a recap. On the 17th, Monday Power Hour, they're going to do a recap. And then on the 18th, this team training, Charles Thompson is going to come on and do a recap with us. So if you can't make it, we will share some information with you. The following Tuesday, Enphase training. The following Tuesday, Sonova training. The following Tuesday, we have Paul, who runs the onboarding for Power. He's going to join us. And then the following Tuesday, we might have a roofing training. So a crap load of good trainings coming up. There's a Freedom Tour right now, February through April. Stay tuned for like a website or a marketing center with all the events and flyers and dates and times. But tonight, for example, is Florida. We've got some of the best leaders today in Orlando going to be saying the business presentation. So you can build into those events. You can invite people into those events. And yeah, any other ideas for trainings or mentors that want to train, you are welcome to message us and we'll get you on here. Here's just a flyer or two for the Evolution sneak peek this Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific. So again, that's going to be a really good event to build into. I made a Facebook event page. I made a LinkedIn event page. You could do the same if you'd like. So let's definitely build into this Thursday. And of course, powerconvention.com. Register for the convention, try to attend. It's 2 days, 8 to 6. I think JC said, just sign up for power.live, $35 a month. That gets you a free ticket. And if you decide in a month or two that power.live is not for you, so be it. You know, that was a good little hack that he shared. So Power.live members do get a free ticket to convention. All right. Today we have a pretty cool training, a topic that's a little near and dear to my heart. He's been working on this for over a week. You can see him on Facebook, Power Pioneers, Power Hitters. It feels like a few months ago, we just Zoomed with him and Anthony Bonilla, and he was saying how he was referring his solar leads to companies and earning $300 to $500 to $1,000 a lead. And I jokingly tell him, like, can you know, what the hell were you doing? And now he's with Power, kicking butt, selling deals. He found this really sweet niche of second systems. And I'll shut up here so he can jump on this training. But Jordan Shaw, so great to have you on here. Pretty excited for today's training.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate you having me do this. This is good. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, make sure everybody can see it. Or see that okay?
Looking good.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, it's true. We jumped on together, and it was, yeah, that was what I was building my business off of, was those dinky little referrals. And then joined Power, and then I told you what happened in October, and it was just like mind-blowing. Just like, what did I just do? It's awesome. Amazing what happens when you get a hold of the right platform. So, but anyway, so what I wanted to do was go a little bit into the solar expansions, because this is becoming more and more common, especially as we have new construction coming on board with California and other states following suit, where they'll be integrating solar into the construction process. And it doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be new construction. It could be plenty of my deals for solar expansions for existing solar systems that homeowner bought the house with it, and it was sized for the previous homeowner, and now all of a sudden it doesn't fit. So let's go ahead and just kind of talk about it. Taking out the true up, that's really what this is about. So a little bit of background on me. I've been around solar for the last 7 years, been running my own consulting business for the last 4, and I'm a 17-year IT pro. So working with different companies like Dell, Google, and as well as the federal government. Do a lot of solar construction, new construction solar add-ons, as well as fire zone rebates and things like that. And I'm heavy in California, and I have heavy ties into Maryland. That's where I got started. Was one of the first. I was actually the first homeowner in our new construction community in Maryland to go solar, and that's where it all kind of started. Was learning about it and answering the questions. And when those questions came to me, I said, I can either ignore them, or I can get really smart on this and try to help people. And that's how my solar journey started. So let's go ahead and jump into it. We're going to talk a little bit about the why and how. We're going to talk about existing systems, as well as have an open Q&A. Okay. So why do you want to do solar expansions? Really, this is just a couple of the reasons I wanted to go over. Was really easy conversion factor. They already have solar. So they're on one of two minds. Either they love it or they hate it, is really what it comes down to. They just don't know, or they don't understand how it works. I cannot tell you the number of times that I talk to somebody and say, oh, you have solar, or like I introduce myself of being in the solar industry, and they go, can you help me with mine? It doesn't work. Like that literally happens. And these are just calls that I get out of the blue. And that's just something that, you know, you can take that as an opportunity to educate and really become the hero. So you really have an easy conversion factor going from A to B, because they already have solar. So you're just adding on to something they already either understand, or they just have a lack of knowledge of. So the pain of the true up, really, this is your number one driver, because people want to get rid of that true up bill. You know, they're staring at a $1,500 bill at the end of the year, or they have no idea it's coming. And I can tell you that's been one of my push, one of the best things that have been for my businesses, that the people will just come out to me like, yeah, I'm looking at $1,800. I'm looking at $2,000 this year. Like, what's going on? Why does this happen? And it goes back to that teachability, being able to educate them on why that's happening. So it's time to really, you should leverage that true up bill. Honestly, 3 smaller systems. I hate to say it, but sometimes you're going to be doing 10 to 14 panel systems. It's not going to be awe-inspiring giant systems. But what that really means is you also have an easier conversion there, because you can actually have an easier financing. You're not hitting potential finance FICO limits. It's going to be, and a lot of times you'll have people say, now I'll just pay for that in cash. What was that, 13, 15K? Let me go ahead and just pay for that. So you'll have those where it'll be easier from an approvals perspective a little like less hurdles. New construction is referral heaven. And I want to say this, you literally want to land and expand. New construction is so easy to get into and just expand with their neighbors, because people move into a new community, they make bonds, they talk to people, right? Everybody's communicating. There's a central Facebook page. They're going to want to talk you up. And really, they are your megaphone. So new construction is great from that perspective, because they will actually be that voice for you, and they'll want to refer you into other communities that are new construction as well, saying, okay, Sue or Joe, they have the same problem, right? They're in another community over there, and they have solar too, and it's just not enough. So new construction really is potentially your best friend there, and really less headaches. When you're dealing with newer construction specifically, you might be dealing with less issues with like surprises, like main service panel upgrades, older roof, right? Things like that. Now that's not always an exact rule. There's times where you're going to be hit with a main service upgrade that you got to do because, main service panel upgrade, because it is actually an older home. And so I had that recently happen where there's no way I could have forecasted it because it was dark when I sold the deal. And all of a sudden, $1,800 later, you get hit, you're like, okay, whatever, let's just move on, right? But thankfully, it was a really large system. And so you usually will have less headaches when you're going into doing expansions, because a lot of the prep work has already kind of been there for that, especially when you're dealing with new construction. It's a new roof. You're not going to need to worry about that. They probably have a 200 amp panel. The worst that you're going to have to do potentially is just derate the system, those types of things. So these are some of the 5 reasons I really kind of come up with, and I've been able to figure out as being kind of a reason to want to do expansions, and hopefully that helps you too. So let's go ahead and how do you start that conversation? Really, it's as easy as saying, hey, I see you have solar. How's it going for you? Just ask the question. They will tell you very quickly whether it's been a dream for them, or they're like, I don't know. I guess it's okay. You'll get those responses too. Do you have an end of the year true-up bill? Like, do you have a bill coming? What do you mean? Like, how long have you had the home? How long have you had the solar? These are the types of questions that you ask, where you'll figure out very quickly if it's worth your time to actually explore that, or it's a good opportunity to go ahead and get a referral, get an ambassador out of that deal, right? And so it's good, regardless, it's great to have that conversation, because it may lead you to sale, or it may be an opportunity to educate, become their best friend, and be able to get referrals in the future. And so they'll tell you very quickly, hey, yeah, I love it, or yeah, I hate it. And I tell you again, I've had calls where I'm like, yeah, the solar thing's going pretty well for me, or I'm in the solar industry. Can you help me with mine? What do you mean? And so it just leads right into that. No joke. All right. So something to talk about on the new construction, know your builder, know the builder. This is very important, because you will know then relatively, and this is not exact, but relatively exactly how many panels are sitting on the roof in a new construction community, especially in California. Okay. And so I will get referred to somebody else, and from one of my ambassadors, and they'll say, okay, well, Jennifer has the same issue that I do. Could you please help me with it? Please help their family, the Gomez family, just please help them. And so I'll call them up and I'll say, hey, so-and-so referred you. I hear you have solar. What can I do for you? It's like, yeah, we're staring at least $1,000 bill every year at this point, something like that. And I say, okay, well, who's your builder? And they'll say, Lennar. I said, okay, so you got what, about 12 panels on the roof, something like that? And they will be shocked that I actually know the count of how many panels are on the roof. And what that's done is establish me being the professional to be able to take it to the next part of the conversation and get that bill, help them with a solution. And so I can't tell you the number of times where like somebody says, oh, KB Homes, like, oh, great. So you have like what, 6 to 9, and they're like, oh yeah, you're right. It's like tiny. I don't understand why they put so many panels. And really it was to check a box. And that's kind of what it comes down to, is just check that box off for a state mandate. And if you're lucky, if they're lucky, they'll have like single story homes that'll have 12 to 14. If they're south facing, it might be perfect for them. But I can't tell you the number of single story houses with 12 panels, south facing, they've got a pool, and their energy, they're still staring at an $1,800 true up bill. It really has, the square footage only has so much to actually do with it. Yes, Steve, what's up? You got a question? No? Okay. So that it doesn't, the square footage doesn't always have to do with the actual consumption. It really depends on the amount of people that were in the home. And something else to keep in mind is 2020's numbers obviously will look different than other years since everybody got stuck together and they were under quarantine and their consumption might have gone up. So knowing the builder will help you establish knowing exactly what your limit, or I'm sorry, what the community footprint looks like from a solar panel perspective. And it'll help you while you're talking to them before you've ever pulled up their address to figure out, okay, what does that mean? You got somewhere in this neighborhood of panels on your roof? And sometimes they'll be like, you know what, I actually don't know. I'm like, it's okay, I'll figure it out for you. You know, so it gives you a good way to actually establish that professional presence with them as being the expert. All right, so let's talk about the true up bill. This is the pain point, okay? In California specifically, this might be a little bit different in some of the other states where they make you true up, you know, maybe every month, you know, depending on the utility. But the true up bill is definitely a pain point. And so what you want to take a look at is when you get that bill, the true up bill is actually going to be one of the easiest bills that you actually will analyze. And I'll tell you why. They're giving you the kilowatt hour consumption year to date on a lot of these bills. And so instead of looking at the graph, trying to figure out exactly what their projected usage might be, you're going to actually be able to go to one of the pages and say, oh, here's your kilowatt hour usage, 6434 is the actual kilowatt hour per today. You're in month 9. Okay, let me go ahead and divide that and multiply it by 12. You know, you can actually get that number and get that projection. So both PG&E and SCE actually make this super easy. And so they'll actually give you these numbers and these values together in a nice chart or in a nice little box for you to be able to analyze. And so this is really important to take a look at, not just consumption, but also, and I'm going to pivot here, what type of net energy NEM policy they're actually on. And this is important. You need to pay attention because the bill only shows you the kilowatt hour consumption is only a sliver of this. You need to know exactly what policy they're on. If they're on NEM 1.0, it's going to change the amount of size that you need to go. And as we move on to 3.0, right, and more people were stuck in 1.0 and 2.0, right, once you make that add-on, everything changes. They got to go get PTO again. So that's going to morph into the next version of the NEM policy. So if this doesn't apply to, you know, and take a look at your specific location, if in the utility, if that actually applies, because some of these might be a city municipality that doesn't have any effect on. But as California moves to 3.0, we might see those municipalities actually starting to take a hint because they got to get the energy somewhere and start putting that in place. I think I read that once where there was one that actually started doing that. And so the true up bill is great for you to be able to say, hey, check this out. You're at $1,700 right now, year to date. Wouldn't it be nice to go ahead and get that to zero? And so this is your opportunity to go in and actually become that hero.
Jordan,
go ahead.
If I can just add in, and clearly Jordan is very smart, everyone. So I know that some people are new to solar here.
I apologize.
But if I can just add a few things, what he was referring to is knowing the rate plan or the net metering. Sometimes in Edison or SDG, PG&E, there's old rate plans that may not be available. So you want to take that into consideration. They may be on net metering 1.0 or 2.0. So you want to take that into consideration because likely the whole system will have to go to whatever is the net metering now available. If this isn't making sense, just work with a mentor like Jordan to properly help your clients. And then the last thing I'm going to add is when I see those numbers, Jordan, $1,770, I type into my phone 1770 and I hit divide by 6434. That homeowner is paying 27.5 cents a kilowatt hour. They are a great candidate to add on solar panels. All right, that's all I got.
Yeah, that's perfect. Because really, if you might actually run into basically a billing that's been billing rate that's been basically defunct. They've gotten rid of it. So like if you've got somebody that comes to you and says, hey, I've got an $800 annual bill I'd love to eliminate, and they're on an old rate where they're getting a really decent rate, and putting their entire system, basically adding a system on, would move their entire array to 2.0 or later. Chances are you probably don't want to do that. You want to say, hey, you know what? You got an $800 bill, but you're getting a really great rate. Like, it's time to educate, say, if I help you, I'd be actually doing you injury, more harm than good. Let's go ahead and just tell you what, refer me to some of your neighbors, sign up for an ambassador program. I'll take care of you. It's an easier time to actually get, it's going to be better for you not to eliminate that bill. All right. If you do want to still do this, this is what it's going to look like, but I wouldn't recommend it. Those are the times that you want to make those calls. And again, if you don't know how to kind of pinpoint that, seriously, just kind of work with a mentor that actually can pinpoint exactly what the usage or what the actual rate structure looks like. All right. So moving on. So this is something else that you want to actually take a look at, is the existing array. The reason for this is PTO. You want to basically know exactly what's sitting on the roof. So one, when we go to actually get PTO, the installer will be able to actually go ahead and put the old system in addition to the new system. So I can't tell you the number of times I've seen a SCE PTO get kicked back because they didn't include the original array with the add-on array. It's like, that doesn't match this. We already have that on record for an NEM agreement. And so it's important to try to get the existing array, because also it's going to let you know exactly what you need to size around, and what, if you need to like derate the panel, anything over 12 kilowatts, chances are you're going to have to put a derate in there, because if the system's already 4 to 6 kW on the roof and you're adding another 6 to 8, right, you're going to have, that's now a total of 12 kilowatts worth of capacity. So getting the existing array information is actually very helpful and important, because it also is kind of like saving time on the front end to make sure that you get paid, everybody gets paid faster, but also your homeowner's not sitting there waiting on a PTO. And I had to track this down recently because the site survey did not yield that. They went to PTO, they forgot to include it, and now we're just we got the information and we're now sitting in a state for PTO. And so as we approach like cutoff times like May for 3.0, this is very important, because you want to make sure that your client does not get stuck in limbo just because we don't have the prior array information. So the screen on the left actually is from SCE's NEM agreement. You actually can email or have the customer email self-generation@sce.com, I believe is the email address. And they actually can ask for their NEM agreement, and they will send them that agreement. And inside that agreement shows you exactly what the panel type is and the inverters. And so on existing, like, let's say leases and stuff like that, SunPower makes it super simple, because they actually will give you that information right up front and center on that actual lease agreement. So it saves you from having to go and email SCE or the local utility to try to get that, so I always like to ask, hey, do you happen to have that agreement? Do you happen to have that lease? Can you send that to me? It's important for me to get that information on the front end. So this is something I like to do just so that you have it, because the site survey may or may not yield that, and you don't want to get stuck at PTO time with a customer that's staring at a timeline of like to get turned on just because you don't have this information. So I just wanted to hit on that. So let's talk a little bit about the sizing. And so sometimes it's small, okay? You're gonna see your 10 to 12 to 14 panel systems. You're not gonna break records and commissions on these things, but it's quantity over size at that point. And so what you wanna do is try to size it appropriately to make sure that you're doing usually 120% if you're going 2.0 to 2.0, depending on what forecasting you need. You'll find sometimes you're adding on an array and it's going to be like 200% what they need, because they're using 3,000 kilowatt hours, and a 4 kilowatt array is going to give you somewhere around 6, right? And so, depending on the orientation and where you are, and that's fine, and that's common. It's better to give them more than not enough, but I always use the term, hey, it's use it or lose it. SCE or the utility is not going to give you fair market value for this energy at the end of the year. They're going to treat you like a power plant. So do you have anything coming up? You know, are you buying an EV? Are you actually, you're going to put in a pool? Do you have an electric heater that you're not using? Like this homeowner right here, I walked in the door with a completely different size system and found out they weren't using electric heat in the winter because it was too expensive. So I'm in there going, what the heck? It's really cold. And they're like, well, what is it like if we make it this big? I'm like, why would you want to make it that big? Well, we have electric heat and we don't use it. What? Like, so this system literally doubled in size just from that conversation. And they had gotten a quote from another company where they just sent it out. And they didn't ask those questions because it was just another quote to send out. This is where you kind of go in, you go put your consultant hat on and say, hey, I want to be on your team, right? I want to show you and help you. And so sizing the system will help you in that. Asking those questions to size the system. Try not to go below 10 panels. It is a pain in the rear if you are trying to do financing. That leads me into price per watt, you know, the price. Smaller the system goes, the higher the price per watt. And then you have to start watching with dealer fees from a financing perspective, what you're actually giving them, because it's very easy to actually accidentally go over 550 a watt on a 8-panel system because it's 8 panels. You know, their soft costs are not going to change. And so you want to make sure that you're sizing it appropriately and that your price itself actually correlates to what you need. You might have to actually take margin hits just to get it below that, especially if you're dealing with adders like adders that you may not normally foresee, like concrete tile versus clay tile, those types of things. And so I see that a lot where I know where my sweet spot needs to be. And I always say to myself, I want to have a margin of at least 4K, because I know after everything's said and done, that still gives me healthy margin in case I miss something or in case I'm paying an ambassador. And so when you're dealing with a 10 kilowatt system, that's just something that I've tried to do, just because that way, even if I'm only getting $1,500 at the end of the day, and because I have an ambassador referral, I also avoided any surprises. And that's just kind of like, that's not a hard rule, but that's kind of where I try to pivot, saying, all right, I got to make sure I have enough margin in this just in case I miss something. And in the smaller systems, you don't usually miss that easily. And so this gets, as I said, that gets critical when you're dealing with ambassador referrals, right? And so you want to make sure that you factor in things like that, like the duration and things like that. And get the existing array attributes. When you get that information, try to match it up. Try to make it look nice, right? You want to make sure if they've got an existing array that maybe a SunPower system and it looks like it's black, you want to go ahead and make sure it's black on black. You want to make sure that whatever you're giving them is going to match up as close as possible, because you want them to be able to point at the roof and go, man, look how cool my new system is, right? And because that's going to give you another referral. And so that's just, you know, try to match up the aesthetics. And I think from a size perspective, so talk a little bit about orientation. I think I have a couple more minutes here. Orientation will play into effect when you're dealing with going from like NEM agreements like 1.0 to 2.0. You want to make sure that you're putting enough size in there to compensate for any time of use that they're potentially going to get. Now, when you're talking to a homeowner, this conversation might shift if they're turning it into a rental in 5 years. But the idea is you want to always make sure you oversize it enough that you're compensating for a time of use switch. And so if you're in this situation, the existing array is pointing west, they have the optimal array. I'm going to go ahead and make sure they clean their system because I know I can get a little bit extra production out of that system, but I also am pointing everything else east. And I know that my hands are tied. I have to do it that way. When possible, try to make sure you're expanding properly south, west, that type of orientation, and take into account which policy they're sitting on for their NEM, because that determines if it's 110%, a 1-to-1 correlation, or if you need to overbuild it slightly more just because they're getting a less favorable energy rate. And as NEM 3.0, we get more details on that. This is going to become even more critical if you're taking a customer from 2.0 to 3.0, right? And so, but that's kind of from a sizing perspective, what I wanted to hit on there. Let's open it up. Tell me what you got.
Real quick, I was going to say, Jordan, phenomenal, man. You are killing it. This is absolute gold. And it's teaching me a lot of stuff. I don't do a lot of add-ons. I do have a hard time out because I have a sales appointment, but I did have a question. As
Yep.
far as combining systems, right? So let's say they got 6-8 panel system with a solar edge inverter.
Mhm.
If I'm going to add on a new system, do I need to go with solar edge or can I go with Enphase and the two work together? The other thing
Yeah.
is could I just upgrade the solar edge inverter and put them all into one? Can you talk a little bit about that, how that works?
Well, that's actually a good question, because and the way I sell it is I say these are two separate systems from a warranty perspective. We're not going to mess with the original warranty.
Okay.
However, some of the installers will actually, and I've found this out, regardless if it's a central inverter or if it's micro inverters, they'll actually wire it all together to make sure that the monitoring actually goes through the envoy. So they'll still have their standalone monitoring. Let's say it's an existing SunPower system. They'll still have that box and it's tied in, but they've actually, a lot of the last few of my installs, they've actually combined them together logically. So at least the homeowner can look at their Enphase app and actually see one production. But when I actually sell it, I say these are two separate systems from a warranty perspective. So we won't be upgrading anything of your existing system. And this comes into a conversation like, well, I have an existing lease. What happens when I get, at the end of, another 12 years? Take it as an upgrade cycle. This is just, you're going to still have another, well, I just showed you, these are RAC panels. They're going to be operating at 92% or higher at year 25. You're going to have plenty of life left out of that system. Let's take it as an upgrade at that time. So you don't have to just treat them separately. And if the installer can actually combine them from a monitoring perspective, great. But I never promise that because we don't know what the installer is actually going to do at the end of the day, because every installer has their own way to do it. And I've had some really great master electricians wiring them together just from a monitoring perspective, which is great. But yeah, I would always say separate. You don't have to pay any attention to the original string inverter on the wall. Just it's a separate system.
It might be easy to think of it like this. We cannot touch that other system at all. This is an entirely separate system that feeds the house, just like the other system feeds the house. We really should not touch the other system whatsoever.
Yep. Yep.
And then we had one
void of warranty.
We had one question in the chat, Jordan.
Sure.
Gentleman Chris, and I'm not sure what state or city he's referring to because I'm not familiar with who has this rule, but if we have a residential production cap of 25, I think he means to say kilowatts, but does that maximum change if you add a second or third system? Is it dependent on address?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because actually I meant to bring that up when you're sizing it. When you're looking at specifically the municipality, the utility that you are operating in, they potentially have 100% cap or even lower. I have a Reading Electric Utility, for example, does not let you go over 70%. They don't care. Like, that's their cap. It's annoying. We found that one out with a solar plus roof project. And so you have to make sure that 12 months matches what they have, and they might still have a different number. So like PG&E, I don't think you can go much above 100% without justification.
You can't.
You can?
In SDGE, SCE, PG&E, you can basically get up to 200% offset.
Okay.
It's very flexible. But in states or cities or utilities where they do have 100% offset caps or system size caps,
yeah,
make sure to know your local rules, utilities, municipalities, work with a mentor that's experienced in those utilities to understand that.
Well, like Florida, for example, going over the kilowatt cap before you have to get that rider, for example, right? So
Right.
like Mike would know more about that. But as soon as you add to that PV nameplate rating, or what the system size is now, the total operational capacity at that address has gone up.
Right.
So, yeah. Yep. That's a great question.
Let's go to Mike. You have your hand up, Mike.
Thanks. And thanks, Jordan. That was great. I had a quick question about if this homeowner was the one that put the original system in, will they get the tax credit on the expansion?
The expansion itself is its own system.
Okay.
So under tax law, it's a home improvement that matches the ITC. It's
Perfect.
just the face value of that system is what gets the tax credit.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Another question in the chat, Jordan. Eric says, I'm a little confused about NEM changes from like 1.0 to 3.0. Will the system expansion change their original NEM contract? Which is the question I asked you, and the safe answer is yes.
Yeah, and I talked to Paul about this a lot too, because they treat it as a new system. I found there was potentially a loophole where it's a multiple operating agreement,
Right.
but I don't know if you always have to operate under the assumption that it's going to change the whole thing.
Yep.
It's that's a safe bet. Plan for the worst, and if it happens to be better, then great, but you've prepared for the worst.
Right. Yes, I've heard a loophole, Eric, about the original system can stick with the original net metering. The new system gets the new net metering. I have yet to prove that. We just have to assume the whole system could go to the new net metering at that time. And I was just going to point out too, going back to that conversation about the $800 true up, maybe it's a grandfathered historical rate plan. Hey, divide by 12 at $66 a month. I don't think this makes sense for you to go solar. Here's why. Let me come over. Let's jump on a call. Let me explain why. By the way, sign up for the ambassador program, and we're going to get rid of that $800 with a referral every year. So yeah, just to point that out.
Yeah, with 3.0 coming up, and the fact that it switches people over and having that minimum connection charge of $60 to $80 a month, you really do need to be the professional and educate your clients and give them the heads up, because yeah, on an $800 difference, they might just be paying that by switching over to 3.0 and wiping out all their savings. So something to definitely be conscious of. Yeah,
and I try to say if it's at least over $1,000 a year, then we're going to start seeing value. Anything under that, are you going to get a different, are you making lifestyle changes? Are you putting in a pool? What are you doing? Right. So you have to ask the important questions. Otherwise you're putting them down the wrong path.
Awesome stuff, Jordan. I'm going to do two more announcements and end this recording, and then we'll stick around for any more Q&A. But huge shout out to Jordan Shaw, everyone. Clearly he knows his stuff. I mean, I was having to pay close attention. So awesome material. If you want second systems add-ons, work with a mentor like Jordan Shaw. He clearly knows all the ins and the outs. On that note, net metering 3.0 is coming. I just heard that our governor is trying to fight it. It's trying to find something that is okay with everybody. I likely think it'll be rewritten or revised a little bit. I think it's too aggressive, but we will see. In the meantime, we have to get every consultant, every customer, every homeowner, every lead to sign the petition. And if we can, attend the rally in 2 days in Los Angeles or San Francisco. I know that there's solar teams and companies going to these rallies together. So I highly recommend, please sign the petition and try to go to a rally. But we will see January 28th, there should be a final ruling on what's going to happen with net metering. At convention, we're going to hear a whole bunch of stuff about virtual site surveys come in. By the middle of the year, we'll hear about Power Enterprise, the ability to recruit organizations and companies and enterprise. We got a new swag store coming within the next few weeks. Keep an eye out for that. And just a whole bunch of new improvements coming. We're going to hear from Paul Wanowski, prior Sunrun COO. We're going to hear Ethan Miller, the COO of Power, who was the VP of SunPower. So tons of good information coming at convention. Operations and customer facing contacts, just always a good reminder, always good to have this in your phone. What to do if you need help on sold tickets, sold projects, leaving a ticket, text and call the PM, email the OM, text and call the OM, use the chat, and then customer facing contacts as well. And then I always like to share this, especially for some of the new people, a video that explains power in 10 to 15 minutes. You could share it with a prospect that's interested in joining us, a solar pro, a realtor, an ambassador that wants to upgrade their account. But it's just a really solid 10 to 15 minute video. I encourage you to make your own, record your own as well. But do share that as we all grow our businesses as well. So again, a huge shout out. Jarrett McAllister, our mentor that kicks this off and came up with these meeting ideas. And of course, Jordan Shaw, the training today. Just want to say thank you for that information. You're truly kicking butt, adding second systems. And as we move forward and as we see more solar required and legally required, and people that got solar 5, 10, 15 years ago, now electric vehicles are coming, right? We're going to see more add-on systems. So it's great to get ahead of the curve, become the professional, market to these communities. And Jordan, we appreciate you sharing your knowledge and information. If you can, drop your contact info into the chat so people can get a hold of you. And again, another good training from the Power Hitters team. Look forward to seeing all this Thursday and at convention. We're going to just leave it open to some Q&A at this time.